Hi, Martha here. Happy Sunday to you. This is actually the Sunday before Thanksgiving here in the United States. So I wanted to share with you a recipe, not a quilting a recipe, but a baking recipe, something that you actually eat. So I wanted to share with you a red velvet cake recipe. In the video further along, I'm going to have a picture of my husband decorating the cake, put the icing on it, and then one what it would look like completely done, and then one where it's been cut up. So I had to go back and try to find some pictures of before. So we are gonna need 3 of these cake pans. These cake pans are about 9 inches in circumference, and they're about 1.5 inches tall. I believe that these are aluminum. I've had these for quite some time. These came from my grandmother, so these are the ones that she had used. So these have a very special meaning to me, and you're going to need 3 of these. I'm assuming that you can still go to a Walmart, Target, and get something very similar to this. So these are just more like 9 inches across, okay? And then I've had these for a long time. Also, they're just cooling racks, but they're round and they're about 10 inches across. And they have the feet here, so that way you can sit them down. You're definitely going to need these because you want your 3 layers of the cake to cool before you ice them. Otherwise, you're going to have icing everywhere. So I wanted to share that with you. When you also go to make the cake, since you're using 3 of these, you're going to use a measuring cup. You can use a 1/2 cup, a third of, well, more like 2/3 of a cup, or even a full cup. You're going to equally divide out the cake mix into these. And when you put them in there, you are going to see some air bubbles. So when you're done making sure that all of the cake mix is out of your bowl and into your cake pans, you do want to kind of shake it a little bit this way carefully, and also kind of pat it down on the counter just a little bit to get some of the air bubbles out. You do not want this cake to be super thick with no air bubbles, but you don't want it to have too many air bubbles. So that is the only time, I've learned, that is the only time that you want to get some of the air bubbles out is before you put it in the oven. Recently, probably within the last year, I got this harebrained idea to go ahead and, pat it, get all the air out of it before I put it in the oven. And then, like, I had put it in the oven, and I think that I had forgotten if I had gotten air bubbles out. So I took all 3 of them out and patted them down a little bit, and that created a cake that was very dense. It was still good, it just wasn't what I was used to. So when you put your cake mix in all 3 of your cake pans, just take them on the counter and pat them maybe about 5 times to get all the air out of them. But it still will leave some of the air bubbles in there, and that helps create a more fluffier cake, but one that's not so dense that it's just different. So have you ever made a cake mistake like that, like I have? I'm sure you have along the way. And do you have a favorite cake recipe that you use for the holidays? To kind of give you a little backstory on the red velvet cake, my grandmother started making this cake when we had Thanksgiving and Christmas over at their home. And then the recipe actually came from my mom. She had gotten it from her work in a little cookbook that they had put together, so it was really neat. She still has that cookbook. I love that cookbook so very much because it's got so many recipes in it that she's made, when I was young and along the way, and so that recipe book has a lot of special memories in it. And the red velvet cake came from that. So my grandmother made it for a long time, and then eventually over the years my mom started making it. And then as I got older, well, I wanted to be able to bring things to Thanksgiving that most everybody wanted to eat, and red velvet cake was one of those that I learned how to make. And my grandmother, she is much older now. She is a centennial, is what they call that now, and she still knows what my red velvet cake tastes like. And so this Thanksgiving, I'm gonna make sure that I take a piece leave some for my mom and dad so that they can take some over to her. Just with the things going on, and she doesn't have as many visitors as you know, we would like to do. So we try to limit, but she definitely knows what the cake tastes like. So I hope you enjoy this video. I will, in the description of the video, because sometimes it feels like in this one I'm rambling a little too much, I will kind of give you some times of where I will have the video where you can see the visual presentation of all the ingredients that are in it, what the cake actually looks like made, what it looks like when you're icing it. We are going to do something a little bit different this year for this cake. We're going to double the icing recipe. We're going to try it and see, because the layers in between the cake, because you have 3 of them, and in between them we're going to try to put a little bit more icing. The ratio for the recipe is perfect. It's, you know, you can use it for any time, but we're going to try something a little bit different and make it just a little bit thicker, and then we're going to put a little bit more on the side of the cake and on the top of it. And we just use a simple butter knife to put the icing on. You do have to be cautious when you're putting the cake, when you're putting the icing on the cake, because you can pick up pieces of the cake. So in one of the pictures you'll see that, where there's a couple of pieces of the red cake poking out, because I just had a hard time icing it. So that's why we're going to try to do a little bit more icing this time. Also, something else that you can do, it does have nuts in the icing. I have made the cake without nuts, so if you are allergic to nuts, you don't like nuts, even if you take the nuts out of the icing portion of it, the cake is still very delicious. And one of my girlfriends, that she absolutely loves it without the nuts, because she just doesn't like nuts. So it makes still a beautiful cake. And I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of what the cake looks like being iced, and then once it's done and then it's cut, and then I'll have for you the ingredients, and then in the description below of the video I'll actually type up all the ingredients that you'll need. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll go ahead and get started. We have Swans Cake Flour, we have sugar. I do not have buttermilk listed because it's still at the store. Haven't gotten that yet because it, to me, it just doesn't have a long shelf life once we open it. We have Wesson oil. We don't have the eggs, they're in the fridge. We do have vanilla, we have baking soda, we have cocoa, we have red food coloring. We also have confectioner sugar. I actually have a big bag. I'm gonna have to cut that in half because it is too large for this particular recipe. We've also got the cream cheese, and then a stick of butter. We've also got the chopped pecans and the vanilla. So these will be all the things to make the red velvet cake. Just wanted to show you a visual. I will still have the recipe actually written down for you in the description below.